1935, Robinson announced on national television that he was gay. This doesn't seem like big news now, but in '88 it was. In so doing, he became the first openly gay member of the House of Commons and announced his advocacy to push for gay rights. In 1999, Alexa McDonough, leader of the NDP party, relegated Robinson to the backbenches in the House of Commons after he presented a petition calling for the word God to be removed from the preamble of the Charter of Rights and Freedoms. You can just go online at any time and type in Canadian Charter of Rights and Freedoms. You'll see in the preamble, or if you purchase my book, not that I'm plugging this or anything, but I do mention I do put the article in there in my book about what he was going through at the time. Essentially, the preamble says something like, Canadians accept above all the supremacy of God and the law of the land, something like that. And some constituents went to him and said, we don't acknowledge the supremacy of God. Can you mention this and try to get it removed from the charter? And of course, in my book, some of the questions I ask are, and what I would love to have asked, had I been in the comments at that point, is, which God? And how do we decide on that? Are we clear on this? On which particular type of God? If we are, great, because I don't think we are, nor can we be. So why is it in there? So maybe we should just have that removed. Not that I want to deny people the right to have religious freedom and to believe whatever they want to believe. I often mention I've started my own particular religion, the Sacred Order of the Fighting Gray Squirrel, and that's my particular penchant. And I have a right, to have those types of beliefs. I know I can't see the squirrel, but he's there. And I consider I'm nuts. But I'm not. So I don't want the charter changed to deny people religious freedoms and whatnot. Nor did Robinson. His point was it's a useless word, because my statement in my book and in my classes, in my critical thinking classes, when I use the Fighting Gray Squirrel, is, okay, here's what I want you to do. If I'm ever in an accident, or my family are ever in a car accident or whatnot, we need surgery, you don't touch us with any surgical implements that have not been boiled in gray squirrel urine. And if you do, I will sue you, and you just let me die. If you can't get the gray squirrel urine, I'm going off to the great, tree squirrel haven in the sky. So how, what I mean? At what point do we want to allow for religious freedom versus the point at which it becomes a considerable either inconvenience to the medical community, or can children make up their own minds? So what if somebody said, DeCarlo was going to allow his 8-year-old son to die because of this belief in this nutty squirrel kind of thing and whatnot? Well, how is that any different than denying blood, when a kid needs it? And you're going to make that decision for that child? And you're going to let that child die when all that child needs is a couple of units of blood? Now who's being ridiculous? So I tend to get a little visceral, a little agitated when it comes to procedures that go beyond common sense for the sustaining of human life. But anyhow. So what Robinson ends up, to finish up with him, he travels to the Middle East in an attempt in 2002 to visit with then Palestinian leader Yasser Arafat at his compound. He's denied access, but he's quoted as saying that the Israeli government and the Israeli military are guilty of torture and murder. Robinson is currently employed by the British Columbia government and Service Employees Union as both an arbitrator and advocate. And our final individual here is Michael Roos, born in 1940, June 21st, 1940, in Birmingham, England, philosopher of science, professor of philosophy of zoology, currently at Florida State University. He's a world-renowned author and champion of Darwinian evolutionary theory, and along with David Hull, developed what is now known as the philosophy of biology. He taught at the University of Guelph for 35 years, and is currently the Lucille T. Werkmeister Professor of Philosophy at Florida State University. He's the author of dozens of journal articles and over 20 books. He's the founder and editor of the journal Biology and Philosophy. And in 1981, Roos was a state witness in the 1981 test case of a state law in Arkansas which permitted the teaching of so-called creation science. I don't know if you remember this, but these go on almost perennially in the high school system. So, the federal judge ruled that the state law was unconstitutional. In the preface to the second edition of Taking Darwin Seriously, Bruce states the following: the fact that we are the contingent end products of a natural process of evolution, rather than special creation of a good God in his own image, has to be just about the most profound thing we humans have discovered about ourselves. Canada has witnessed a perhaps brief but illustrious demonstration of free thought since Confederation. It is a country with hope and compassion, and when I look around this room today, I see those who have made great contributions to its cause, and of course those who are about to. Thank you.
Yeah, Chris, going way back to Charles Watts. You mentioned he came to Toronto, I think it was 1882, and spoke before the Toronto Secular Society.
Right.
The editor in me stops and wants to say, whoa, who them?
Oh.
Do we know anything about this
No, there's
pre-existing
not. I couldn't
organization?
find a great deal on them. I mean, you know, you do the usual Google stuff. You talk to a head librarian at U of G and whatnot. Occasionally you'll find some stuff on microfiche, but then when you go looking for it, it's not there. So, although they seem to be functioning, although I did find reference to them, I couldn't find any of the minutes, any of their material. That seems to have been lost. And probably because, you know, when these groups dissolve, you know, the stuff's like this. It might be here, it might be there, and it just gets chucked out or in somebody's basement or attic somewhere. Right? Is there any way, I know you're looking for stuff for Ingersol, and Tom, you're always interested in this. Is there no way you can go online and make an announcement? Like, can you put out a request on an eBay, or can you put out a request on a public forum page where, hey, check your attics, and if you're cleaning them out and you happen to come across something like this.
You can do that on eBay.
You can do that on
To
eBay.
be what you're looking for.
Yeah.
Put it out there.
Right. But you got to think some of the stuff, like even those pamphlets against Ingersol when he came here, wouldn't that be a neat thing to have? Just somebody cleaning out grandma's attic and just comes across this and probably just chucks it out, right?
Most of what I've found like that in the last few years has been just more or less blind searches on eBay.
Yeah, right. Right. Yeah.
I know when I worked at the museum in vertebrate paleontology, identifying fossils that had never been unwrapped since the beginning of the century. There were lots of old Canadian newspapers, and I spent a lot of time reading just little bits. I don't, that was maybe 15 years ago, but I shouldn't think they finished unwrapping them. You could ask.
To the museum.
You could ask the museum when they unwrap their fossils to save
Was this
the
at the
paper.
Rock?
Yes, yes.
Okay.
But,
Good
but
point.
so there's lots of stuff that is duplicated, and they haven't even bothered looking at it.
Right.
Never mind that fossil, that wrapping's
Yeah,
fantastic.
Send the fossil to Hovind, I'll take the newspaper.
Are we good? Good.